right, Andy. We are back. Isn't it nice? We have been missing in action. We're gone for the 4th. Decided, hell, we'll just stay another week, be gone for 2 weeks. They had some renovations I see here in the studio. So we're back in the saddle, back in black. We're back on a Monday, July 17th. And man, whoofty, it is hot. It is hot. It is hot from coast to coast. I mean, I am telling you, it is unbelievably hot out. Yesterday here in Great Falls, it was sweltering. It didn't, when it doesn't, Andy, when it don't get below like 65 or so at night, it's, and I know people in Arizona are like, it only gets to 90 at night. So, they're having hot fun in the summertime. Hot child summer in the city. We're cooking in the 90s statewide today, Andy, and tomorrow, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Like I said, the nation's under record-breaking heat. Please take care of your doggos, kiddos. It's hot out there, all right? It's funny because, Andy, didn't we warn everybody here about 2.5 months ago on a podcast about how El Nino was coming in and we were going to have a record high all summer long, and I was doing the, I am El Nino, all other tropical storms bow before El Nino. That was bad. That was bad. That was really bad. Speaking of bad, look at this. Andy, everybody, Dennis Rodman. You see that, number 10? And Dennis Rodman, Bad Boys, jersey that I scored while I was gone. I ran into someone. They're like, you're a Pistons fan. You like old school, Bad Boys. Can you imagine? Here, all right. The argument, LeBron James. So, here, I want to put out something. LeBron James, offensively in his prime, against Dennis Rodman, the Worm, defensively in his prime. Talk amongst yourselves. Take notes if you need to. Get back to me. Andy, I don't know. I'm thinking defense wins championships. I said it before, and I'm thinking that Dennis, the Menace. Yeah, I agree. Rodman, all the way. So, we take a couple weeks off. We go here, we go there. Come back. While we were gone, they, meaning the Secret Service, found in Joe Biden's White House a bag of cocaine. Yeah, that's right, Joe. Times are tough. What's going on? It was found in a entrance area between a foyer and a lower level lobby. Okay? It was really close. It was a foyer. People put their cell phones there, their coffee there, evidently their cocaine there. It was really close to where some vehicles parked, like Vice President Kamala Harris's limo and her SUV. Secret Service cars, family members' cars. It was one floor below the West Wing Isn't that where they did that TV show about the West Wing with, who was in that? That was pretty good. West Wing, yeah. I know. It was the same floor as the Situation Room. And what is that? The Situation. All right, we got a situation here. Let's go to the Situation Room. Or is it just a place that the Situation from Jersey Shore gets to show up? And when he gets to the White House, it's like, hey, Situation, we got your own room. It's real close to the dining room, too. So, it wasn't real close to the dining room. So, last week, they found it and they closed the investigation last week, the Secret Service, due to the lack of physical evidence. I can't get far back enough in my head, the eye roll. Seriously? Andy, can I say whose it was? I can't say that. I'll be what? I'll be libel and a slander? I'll be libelous and slanderous, you say. So I can't say it was, I can't say his name. I mean, you know who it was, right? I mean, there's just bags of cocaine laying around the White House. Say what you will about the Trump and the Obama administrations, both, they didn't have bags of cocaine laying around. Wait a minute. What? Just say, hang on. What do you mean, what am I looking for? I'm looking for bags of cocaine. When everyone had secret documents, Andy, you said, hey, we got secret documents laying all over the room. Jeez. Also, last week, so it's closed, right? It's closed. All right. Done and over. They don't know whose it was, How much was it, a gram? Also last Tuesday, to be exact, former Manson member Leslie Van Houten was freed on parole and transferred to a transitional living center. Now, Van Houten was 70 years old, was freed after she was denied more than 20 times parole, and when she was granted parole, the governor was Brown and Newsom both, Andy Brown and Newsom both, said, look, we don't care if you give her the nature of offense, all of that, and her behavior has been exemplary. Is that the word? Since her incarceration, she's been incarceration since she was 19. Now, it's kind of a double-edged thing to kind of think about here. She was 19, and now she's 70, okay? Are you at whoever age you're out there? I'm in my 60s, and I'm not the same person that I was when I was 19. Some of you know me when I was 19. That was an adventure, wasn't it? But she's not. Her incarceration at 19 years old was due to the murders of Leonel and Rosemary LaBianca. And that was in 1969. And, it was a hot summer, like it is now, in 1969, when it all started to calm down. I was 13 years old. I was in junior high, living in Farmington Hills, Michigan. The family was still back in Michigan. If you watch the podcast, the divorce comes in about a year. So in 69, we were still in Detroit. And it was, I'll get into the murders, but the second one was the one that made the headlines, and the third one, the LaBianca and the Tate murders. You know, it was on the front page of the Detroit Free Press, the front page of the Detroit News. It was like some scary stuff because we hadn't seen anything like that before. Okay, now we get news 24/7. You got to remember back then, this was like the first big thing that's going on, right? The big news were these scary shit. Now, I learned about the family, the Charles Manson family in Southern California in the late 60s. Even though the murders and convictions were all in the, early 70s, they still had the family was still apart. Now, Charlie Manson, he used, I'm going to jump around here for just a second, Andy. He used textbook government brainwashing techniques, just like the Sudanese Liberation Army. Did I do that right? With Patty Hearst. They used those techniques coupled with drugs, and he also preyed on young girls and young boys that had abusive households, lack of a father figure. He coupled all of that together and organized this like family. Now the family, they besides doing drugs and dumpster diving and begging and being hippies in the color culture in the late 60s, they committed various crimes, murders, assaults, burglaries, thefts, auto thefts, street vandalism, credit card schemes, sold drugs, bought drugs. That's right, Andy. Charlie Manson started everything when he was released in 1967 from prison and made his way to San Francisco and established himself as a guru in the Haight-Ashbury district. I've been there. I was there like mid 80s, mid to late 80s, Andy. I was down there. I got my picture. I don't have it on digital. Got my picture standing by the Haight-Ashbury side. Everybody does. But Charlie was there during the Summer of Love in 1967, where I was there in 1987. Missed it by 20. And that's what he did. It was more innocent there, and they were just street urchins. They were, trying to get along. By 1969, the Manson family was like around 100 strong. I'm looking here, Andy, and then my notes are telling me 110 strong. Primarily 80% women. And based out of an old movie set, Western movie set called the Spawn Ranch. Now, the Spawn Ranch was owned by a blind George Spawn, and it used for filming famous westerns back in the Hollywood days. But Charlie got his girls to have sex with the 80-year-old blind guy, and he looked the other eye, so to speak. Did you see what I did there? That was so bad. Exchanging, room and board for Charlie and the guys. He had his whole family there. Orgies, drugs, it's the whole, I don't know whether we're doing the Manson family or the Manson murders, and I can't do both because they both are very detailed. But, Charlie in this whole thing that believed that the whole thing, the whole race war was imminent, and that the Beatles were talking. Now, Charlie was not an accomplished musician, but Charlie was a fair musician. I heard a couple people stole songs, Terry Melcher, We'll get to Terry in a minute. Charlie believed that the Beatles were talking to him, and specifically through the White Album, which is a pretty good album. I have it twice. I have it on black vinyl with the Apple label, and I have it on white vinyl on the Apple label. So black and white vinyl. So it's a good album. However, the Beatles were not talking to Charlie or anyone else through the song Piggies. Didn't mean political piggies. And the Helter Skelter songs the Helter Skelter was even misspelled at one of the murder sites. Charlie believed it was a direct reference to a race war, when in actuality, a Helter Skelter is what they call a roller coaster? Thank you, Andy. It was a roller coaster in England. When I get to the bottom, then I go to the top. And I go down, helter skelter, da-da-da-da. He's going to get to the bottom, then go back to the top. It's a roller coaster, okay? But Charlie decided that, it was just the button to get into the topic of race wars, that and piggies. And it's ridiculous. The cult leaders infer weird shit. We've talked about them before. So it's the summer of '69, and Charlie's ready for war. The former family member wrote in his autobiography, Tex Watson, that Charlie believed that a blackie was trying to get at the chosen ones, the family, the chosen ones. And the murders were committed to look like it was perpetrated by the blacks. Now, it all started when the Gary Hinman murder on July 27th of 1969, which is ironically the only murder that scene where they could actually place Charlie at the scene. LaBianca, yeah, but he left in the car, remember, Andy? All right. Charlie sent family members Bobby Belosi, Mary Bruner, and Susan Atkins. Yeah, and Susan Atkins to Hinman's homes to convince him to join the family and turn over that he allegedly, Charlie believed, he heard that Gary had inherited when his uncle died. So while the three, that's Bobby, Mary, and Susan, held Hinman hostage for 2 freaking days, Charlie showed up with a sword, machete, slashed Hinman's face, slashed Hinman's ear, left. Bobby then stabbed Gary to death on Manson's instructions as Charlie walked out the door. Someone left the words political piggies on the wall and drew a panther, the Black Panther symbol on the wall, to tie it to the black. On the night of August 8th, 1969, the 8th murders are probably the most famous. Manson directed Tex Watson to take Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel to Terry Melcher's house. That's Doris Day's son. He has connections in the music industry of Warner Brothers and the Beach Boys, and told them to go to 10050 CeeLo Drive in Los Angeles. According to Watson, Manson told him to kill everybody there. Recently, Sharon Tate had rented the house from Terry Melcher. Her and her husband, Roman Polanski, who was at the time in Europe, filming The Dolphin in Europe, Day of the Dolphin in Europe. Manson told the 3 women told them to do, as you obviously know what they did. They killed the 5 people that they found. Sharon Tate, who was 8 months and a half pregnant, who was living at the house at the time. Famous hairdresser Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger from the Folgers family, and what's Wojciech Frykowski? Well, he was a hairdresser too. They were visiting her and a young guy by the name of Stephen Parent, who was he was visiting the caretaker. Atkins wrote Pig, and Susan Atkins Susan Atkins wrote Pig, and Sharon Tate's blood on the front door. The caretaker of the house at the time was the only living surviving member. The murders created the national attention that I talked about earlier. Detroit Free Press, the news, the headlines and everywhere. The very next night, August 9th, the murder that Van Houten that we originally started talking about was involved with occurred. 7 family members, Leslie Van Houten, Steve Grogan, Charlie Manson, and all the 4 from the previous night drove to the home of Rosemary and Leno LaBianca after Manson pointed through the window at Leo asleep in the recliner in the living room. He sent the others into the house where they stabbed the couple to death. Still think she should get a parole? Upon leaving the residence, the words "rise," "death to the pigs," and the misspelling of "helter skelter" on the refrigerator door. The last murder was on August 16th. Spawn Ranch stuntman, horse wrangler. He'd been even on Gunsmoke, Andy, yeah. Donald Shorty Shea was murdered and buried in a shallow grave on the Spawn Ranch. Manson had believed that Shorty knew about the Tate LaBianca turn murders. It was going to tell. He found out because he was sleeping with all the girls. Everybody knew about the murders. So in total, Charlie and his followers were convicted of 9 counts of first-degree murder. Some reports have them as high as 35, but none can be confirmed. Several excavations, as I got that word right, Andy, excavations. Several excavations. They've done it at the Spawn Ranch, and Manson's Barker Ranch was the preceding to the Spawn. You know, he had these girls, and he had this bus, and you know, they drove around, and they dumpster dive, and they had orgies, and they did this, and they did drugs, and they committed all these crimes before the murders. So, you know, they were fairly organized. Charlie's organizational skills were fairly good, and you know, he had an abundance of women for a reason. First, they were easier to control. There was more female runaways. And second, there was a more variety of partners for potential male family members. There were very few higher up family members. There was Tex Watson, as we talked about. There was Steve Grogan and Bobby. But that's about it. You know, basically what Charlie wanted was a lot of girls he could brainwash, and a lot of girls that he could do his bidding, you know. And if you look at the murders in depth, they were all just majorly wasted when they did it. He made sure that they were. Now, I'm not excusing the Indian people for one bit. All I'm saying is that Leslie Van Houten is probably not the same girl at 70. What's she got now? 2 or 3 degrees? She's been counseling other women for 30, 40 years. Exemplary conduct, never been in trouble. The criminal justice is to rehabilitate, but, come on. You got to remember that Van Houten and the other 4 defendants, that would be Manson, Watson, Kernwinkle, and Atkins, were all given the death sentence, originally on this crime, and rightfully so, If you read the details, I'll give you a couple books, but if you read the details, you'll understand what I'm saying. The death penalty in California was repealed in 1972. That was, a year and a half after the convictions? Susan Atkins and Charlie Manson are dead. Leslie Van Houten, as I said, she got the parole. Now, she wasn't at the first scene. She was at the Folgers killings, at the La Bianca's, right. She was at the La Bianca's. So, if you want more reading, there's other stuff in this. Vincent Bugalosi, he wrote Helter Skelter. He was the prosecuting attorney on this one. Very good book, made into a movie from a prosecuting attorney's point of view. Also, Ed Sanders wrote a book, and it was called The Family. Very, very, very good book, written from a different perspective than a prosecuting attorney. What else happened, Andy? She's out. My question is what we know and what we, Last week I seen that the transcripts, it was Thursday, Wednesday? It's been all last week. The transcripts from the doomed Submersible Titan have been made public. They're on YouTube, they're on Google, news outlets have them. It's like, the first reports that we got were, we can't find them. And then second reports were they imploded and they died instantly. And now that we got the transcripts, Andy, it's a third story. And basically we have 19 minutes. We have more than 19 minutes. We have like a half an hour of talking. And maybe a little bit more than that. And then for the last 19 minutes, it's just agonizing to read it. And it's agonizing to understand what they must have been going through, because they were having electrical problems. They had alarms going off. They had alerts going off. And they were literally, and I mean not figuratively, they were literally reporting. We're hearing cracks from the rear end. We're hearing cracks. We're hearing cracks. Now, they were at 3,600 feet when they should have been, Andy, at 22. They went down way too fast, way too fast. They were very aware of what was going on. They were trying to raise. They couldn't raise because they had the momentum pulling them down. They heard in the cracks. They're talking about the cracks. They're talking about we have problems. Houston, we have a problem. And the next thing you know, there was radio silence. Seriously, they're like, oh, we're hearing the cracks again. Well, tell us where. Hello? 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 Can you hear me now? So it happened fast after 19 minutes of agonizing, knowing what they were going through. It was turned like this, up and they're all jammed down. It was dark, lights are going off, blinking, hearing cracking. It ain't Miller time. It ain't, when we get done with this, we're going to brunch. No, you're not. So, It was a weird couple weeks, Andy. We were gone, and it was weird. You know, I still don't know if the parole. I just don't. You know, the facts are the facts. 50 some odd years later, what do you know? You know, you sure we don't have coke hidden around here? You sure I can't say whose it is? Okay. All right. Have a great Monday the 17th. Andy, what is Monday the 17th? It is Peach Ice Cream Day. Are you shitting me? You are shitting me not. It is Peach Ice Cream Day, everybody. So, have a great rest of your week. Remember the drill, all right? It's hot out. Do not be leaving your dogs in the car, all right? Don't even take them out. There's no reason they should be going anywhere, okay? So kiss your dogs. Adopt, don't shop. No dogs in a hot car, okay? Foster, rescue, spay and neuter, adopt a shelter pet today. Did I say kiss your dog? Of course I did. All right, everybody, thanks for joining in. We will see you next week. We will see, Andy says we will be here next week.